Hi, I'm Craig, and this is the 5th video in this series, The History of Britain. And today I'm going to talk about the Plantagenets. The Plantagenets. And the Plantagenets is a group of royal houses such as the Angevins, Lancaster and York that are grouped together, known as the Plantagenets. So after Matilda returned to France in 1148, Stephen, this was Henry's nephew. Stephen, he remained king until his death in 1153, until he died in 1153. And Stephen made an agreement with Henry of Anjou. Henry of Anjou became Henry II, and the agreement he made was that Henry would succeed Stephen, would become king after Stephen, and maintain peace between them. This union was named the Angevin Empire. And Henry II, he destroyed the remaining adulterine castles, which I believe I mentioned in the previous video, the adulterine castles. Then expanded his power into Scotland, Ireland and Wales, as well as other places of England as well. Henry's successor, that is the king after Henry, was Richard I. Richard I, also known as Richard the Lionheart, but he was also known as the Absent King. He was also known as Absent King because he was preoccupied. He was busy with foreign wars and taking part in the Third Crusade. And he was captured. He was taken while returning, having to plead loyalty to the Holy Roman Empire as part of his ransom, and defending his French territories against Philip II of France. His successor, his younger brother John, he lost most of these territories during the Battle of Bouvines. In 1214. Despite having made the Kingdom of England a tribute-paying vassal of the Holy See, which is the jurisdiction of the Pope over the Catholics, while he was Bishop of Rome, which it remained until the 14th century, when England rejected the Holy See as having jurisdiction of the overlordship, and re-established its sovereignty. First anti-Semitic pogroms occurred during Richard I's crusades in 1189 and 1190 in York and elsewhere, and other places. In York, 150 Jews died. From 1212 onwards, John had a policy of maintaining close relations with the Pope, which is one of the ways he persuaded the Pope to reject the legitimacy of the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta is a royal charter of rights. Over the course of John's reign, a combination of higher taxes unsuccessful wars and conflict with the Pope made John unpopular with his barons, with the people. In 1215, the most important barons rebelled and fought against John. He met their leaders along with the French and Scottish allies at Runnymede near London on the 15th of June. On the 15th of June 1215 to seal the Great Charter. In Latin it's called the Magna Carta, and the Magna Carta, it imposed limits on the king's power and the king's authority. Eventually John received approval from the Pope to go back on his word, because he signed the Magna Carta under duress, because he was forced to sign due to certain circumstances, and this provoked the First Barons' War. And a French invasion by Prince Louis of France. Invited by a majority of English barons to replace John as king in 1216. And John travelled around the country opposing the rebel forces, directing a 2-month siege of the rebel-held Rochester Castle. John's son, Henry III, John's son, he was only 9 years old. When he became king in 1216. John's son, Henry III, was only 9 years old when he became king in 1216. He spent most of his reign, most of the time as king, fighting the barons over Magna Carta. He was forced to call the first parliament in 1264. He was forced to call the first parliament in 1264, where they decide on the law. He was also unsuccessful when trying to regain control over Normandy, Anjou, and Aquitaine. There were many rebellions and civil wars during Henry III's reign due to incompetence and mismanagement in government, and also the over-reliance of the French courtiers, which then restricted the influence of the English nobility. Henry III's policy against the Jews began with tolerance, but it gradually, very slowly, became more restrictive. In 1253, the Statute of Jura reinforced physical segregation and demanded a previously laxed requirement to wear square white badges. Henry III also backed an accusation of child murder, ordering a Jew Gopin to be executed. 91 Jews were arrested for trial. 18 were killed, and popular superstitious fears were made stronger. The hostility with the Catholics, as well as abuse of loan arrangements by the barons, resulted in the supporters of Simon de Montfort. Simon de Montfort targeting Jewish communities in their revolt. And all this hostility and violent controversy, it was the background to the increasing oppressive measures that continued under Edward I. The reign of Edward I was more successful. Edward I, he was king between 1272 and 1307. He created many laws that strengthened the government of England, and he created the first Parliament of England. King Edward also conquered Wales, and he tried using a succession dispute to conquer Scotland. But this turned out to be a very expensive campaign. Edward I is also known for his policies persecuting the Jews, especially the 1275 Statute of the Jewry. This banned Jews from their previous role of making loans, demanded that they worked as merchants, farmers, craftsmen, or soldiers. This was unrealistic, and it failed. So Edward's solution was to expel the Jews from England, to remove all Jews from England. This was the first statewide permanent expulsion in Europe. His son, Edward II, was considered a disaster by the other nobles, because Edward II preferred thatching and ditch digging, and preferred associating himself with the lower class rather than the activities of the nobles of the higher class, doing activities such as jousting and hunting, or the usual entertainment of the kings. He spent most of his reign trying to control the nobles, but he was met with hostility. In the meantime, Robert Bruce, the Scottish leader, began taking the territory that was conquered by Edward I. In 1314, the Scots defeated England in the Battle of Bannockburn. There was a great famine in England between 1315 and 1317. The Great Famine of England between 1315 and 1317. This resulted in about 500,000 deaths. Which at the time was about 10% of the population of England died due to the famine, due to hunger and disease. Edward's downfall was when his wife Isabella, Queen Isabella, travelled to her native country, France, with her lover, and they invaded England. They only had a small army, but they managed to ask for help. They managed to get a lot of support for their cause. But the king fled London. He left London. He was eventually captured and charged with breaking his coronation oath. He was then imprisoned. In Gloucestershire. He was then imprisoned in Gloucestershire until he was eventually murdered. He was killed in 1327, possibly by agents of Queen Isabella and her lover Mortimer. Edward III, he was the son of Edward II. He was crowned at the age of 14 after his father was deposed by his mother. Edward III reigned from 1327 to 1377. He restored royal authority within England, and he went on to transform England into the most efficient military power in Europe. There was many vital changes and developments within the law, within government, in particular the evolution of the English Parliament, as well as the Black Death. Edward III, he defeated Scotland, but didn't subjugate them. He then declared himself the rightful heir to the French throne in 1338. But his claim was denied due to the Salic law, and this started what would later be known as the 100 Years' War, which I will speak more about in another video. Edward III, he died of a stroke in 1377. He died of a stroke on the 21st of June 1377, and was succeeded by his 10-year-old grandson, Richard II. Richard II then married Anne of Bohemia, who was the daughter of a Holy Roman Emperor in 1382. He ruled until he was deposed by his cousin Henry IV. In 1399, and he was deposed by Henry IV in 1399. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section, so I know you would like to see more videos like these. If there's anything in this video you'd like to learn more about, then leave a comment in the comment section and I will create a video explaining more about it. If you like private English lessons, then click on the link in the description. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.